Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in our chats with Emily. That's what we're calling our readings through the Johnson edition, the 1,775 poems of Emily Dickinson. We turn now to what some have called a bizarre poem. Certainly some of you will recognize this poem as being a little bit different from poems that we've already studied. Poem 218, Is It True, Dear Sue? It is one of the more strange poems that we will read. Some have seen this as a unbelievably honest poem, and it tells us a lot about the relationship that's happening in the summer of 1861 between Emily and her best pal, Sue. Now, a lot of this has to do with Sue's life. More importantly, in a note of letter 232 that Emily sent across to the Evergreens, the house adjacent where Sue lived, and this note has everything to do with the birth of Susan and Austin, Emily's brother's first child, Edward, or Ned, or Jackie sometimes referred to, 19th of June, 1861. It is an interesting poem because it's clear that Emily has a certain kind of fear about what she can and can't do, and to what degree is she going to be able to fit in with this newborn child. There's going to be some strange kinds of resonances going on here. Now, our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net, down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily, our playlist. And I'm hopeful that you've already worked through our introductory set of comments. I'm hopeful that you've already worked through the previous 217 poems. We just finished with 217, Savior, I've no one else to tell. Now, in some ways, you could ask the question, what is Emily's view of children, of childhood, of mothering, and all the things that will go into that? It isn't totally clear. Many have argued that Emily was a devoted aunt. She loved Ned. She loved to play hide and seek, we are told. And she often would want to herself be very childlike. However, there does seem to be a certain streak of, are we going to call it jealousy or maybe concern, and seeing children that have been brought into the family as possible rivals. No question, this is a possibility. Some have, as we said, called this a bizarre, quote-unquote, bizarre poem, especially as it relates to her comments regarding the child himself. Now, she once said in letter 2.434, kiss little Ned in the seam, in the neck entirely for me. But it isn't altogether clear what her thoughts are about what it means now that her pal Sue is a mother. And we know, of course, that motherhood for Sue, for all mothers, is going to be unbelievably time-consuming. So this is the way she says it. Is it true, dear Sue, are there two I shouldn't like to come for fear of joggling him? If I could, shut him up in a coffee cup or tie him to a pin till I got in, or make him fast to Toby's fist, hissed, whist, I'd come. Now, Toby is the family cat. So, and it's the only use ever of Toby in all of her poetry. Notice it asks as if it is a question. Of course, she already knows that it's true. So there's a bit of tongue-in-cheek going on here. Is it true, dear Sue, there are there two? Notice the rhetorical question. In other words, now there's not just Sue, but there's Sue and there's Ned, her child, right? I shouldn't like to come. Notice the last word of this poem is in fact come. I shouldn't like to come for fear of joggling him. In other words, I'm not sure I would even know how to hold a baby, especially Ned, right? If I could shut the newborn up in a coffee cup or tie him to a pin or make him fast to Toby's fist, the cat's fist. Notice the three things, if I could do that. Now, again, some have read this and went, what is she talking about? Is she suggesting that if she could somehow shut the child up, she'd be willing to come and to visit Sue? In other words, many have read this as it's almost like Emily sees now Ned in the birth of the child as a rival to her friend Sue. Notice the sounds, all these S sounds, right? Hissed, whist. If all of those things could happen, then I would come. In other words, it's clear what she's actually saying in this poem. Yeah, I'm not coming. At 2a, It seems that maybe the primary focus of this poem is that Emily doesn't really want to get involved in the new child, the birth of the new child. What really is standing behind this poem for many readers, especially if you kind of have a sense of what is about to happen between Emily and Sue, it seems as if that this is kind of the beginning of some kind of rupture in their relationship in the summer of 1861. At 2b, well, there are all these S sounds that we hear. It does in some ways maybe show signs of anxiety about the birth of Ned. At 3a, how are we going to relate this to Emily's kind of keen sense of exclusion or rejection? There's kind of two ways this is often read. In her master letters, she seems to be concerned about rejection from master, and then in other poems, it's her rejection of Sue. Poem 248 is an interesting poem in this regard. Why do they shut me out of heaven? Did I sing too loud? But I can say a little minor, timid as a bird. Wouldn't the angels try me just once more, just see if I trouble them, but don't shut the door. Oh, if I were the gentleman in the white robe and they were the little hand that knocked, could I forbid? Now, I think that this idea that Emily at times feels rejected, we're going to come back to this same idea when we meet poem 220 here in a little bit. Finally, in 3b, what was a time that you did feel like a third wheel? That's an easy way to maybe have access to this poem. What was a time when you had a friendship and for whatever reason you begin to feel like you were kind of stuck in the middle between a rock and a hard place, and how to kind of fit in and understand that? This is a poem. We'll come back to this sentiment a number of times in our study. Thank you.